people. Well, what can I say? White supremacy. Interesting subject. That only came to light following the tragedy at Christchurch in New Zealand. I've listened, I've watched, I've read, and to me it's just another situation that the government knew about and did nothing to stop it. They wanted it to happen. Too much else was happening. They needed some distractions from a lot of things. And to me that was their distraction. But it was also momentum for their own extremism against society, and then the pretenses of running a democracy. And that's how Jacinda Ardern works. I think that the secrecy around this guy not being able to be interviewed by someone who actually knows about white supremacy and everything else, and to get the details off him of exactly why he did what he did, when he did it. And, you know, there's a lot of statements about police knew about, and they were informed about these things beforehand. So therefore, there has to be some complicity in the crime by government. The government's trying to turn itself into victims and trying to turn society into villains, at the same time taking away everybody's rights. Now, I've got my own issues to deal with AZCC, crime and government, and their criminal conspiracies and their vigilantism and their state terrorism and their Nazism. I called them Nazis long before this white supremacy thing came to light. They're calling it white supremacy. One white man, I think he was an Australian, plans and assassinates 50 odd people. But she wants to play, Jacinda wants to play the terrorism game. Like every, I don't know, every religion, every nationality, you're always going to have extremists. And you're always going to have individuals who are psychopaths, head cases, who do things that are evil. But because people support that type of behavior, doesn't make everybody a bad person. And this is what I have a problem with Jacinda. And she's a part of the problem, not a part of the solution. And she's trying to do everything in secrecy and then bring it out into the public arena like she's trying to do everybody a fucking favor. And she's trying to keep everybody safe. She's not keeping anybody safe. And to be perfectly frank, nobody's keeping her safe either. It's just, you speak out, you're going to be hammered. She's starting an extremist action against not only New Zealand but the world, and suppressing and oppressing victims. Now, I really don't need all this white supremacy bullshit and all this terrorism bullshit, and I've got my own problems to deal with. The problem is that my problems are not going to be resolved or get addressed because she's hiding behind white supremacy and changing this law and changing that law and doing this and doing that. So I get stuck in the bottom fucking drawer like I have been for the last 20 years. Well, these people carried out their Nazism, abuse, threats, intimidation, violence, inventing brain injuries that didn't exist, inventing mental illnesses that didn't exist, inventing threats to kill that didn't exist. This is what these terrorists do to their victims' lives who are under their controls. I'm under their controls because of my injuries. New Zealand is a country that runs its own criminal racketeering system, pays medical experts to violate and rape people's lives and to cover up their crimes, and to give them something to where they can then attack their victim. It's no different to setting up a terrorist attack, because as far as I'm concerned, the government are complicit in this terrorist attack in more ways than one. Police, there needs to be a full investigation into all their actions and what they knew and what they didn't know. But in my case, it's like you don't have any lawful forms for addressing the crimes they're involved in. The government repeals the laws of criminal provocation that enables them to commit criminal provocations. Everything that they do criminally is hidden behind a civil jurisdiction, because the government wants me to sue them or to take my own public-private criminal prosecutions while they're committing their crimes, while they're pretending to be investigating crimes that they themselves invent and manufacture. Because the government likes to leave everything to hearsay, lies, and the end of speculation and manufacturing. And that enables them to have their stupid arguments. It's all part and parcel of their organised criminal gang behaviour. It's all part and parcel of their cover-ups. It's all part and parcel of attacking the victim and overloading the victim's life with as many people as they can employ. And when somebody gets caught committing a crime or overstepping the lines of law and legislation, they just bring in another person to continue it from where the other person left off. But they don't want to involve the same person on the thing. And then when all the people who have to answer for the crimes and have to answer 1 million, maybe 2 million questions, maybe more, they never answer them. We don't have to answer a question. You see, the law is used for criminal purposes by the government. The government are extremists. The government are terrorists in their own rights, through their own actions. And you watch the 60-minute Australian program where the guy's having a normal relationship, love of his life, she's a greedy bitch, she's got a position within the police, she knows how to manipulate the law, she knows how to accuse. New Zealand government's no different. AZCC and their lawyers are no different. And then they act as extremists, threatening, intimidating, bullying, abusing their victims, kidnapping their victims. And it is an ongoing process of a lifetime of state terrorism. Now, this is what the government's trying to avoid everybody knowing. It's literally a death sentence. A life and a death sentence. If you live to you're 65, you get to retire with fuck all. So literally, the government wants to continue making its $1 billion a year profit, plus its investments, which is probably doubling its profits, tripling its profits every year. So it's a multi-billion-dollar fraud run industry, and the only people making money from it are the criminals that are running it, and the corrupt medical professionals that they pay to cover up their crimes. So you're literally a prisoner or hostage in a captive held criminally to blackmail and ransom at all times, while they carry out misfeasance in public office and criminal blackmail against their victims, because the intent is to cost the victim everything they have. As I'm sure you've seen in that 60-minute program. It's about accusing the victim of crimes all the time, singling out the victim, isolating the victim, alienating the victim, These are all part and parcel of criminal abuses, but they're also part and parcel of frustrating the hell out of the victim and wearing them down mentally, psychologically, emotionally, physically and financially. Then you've got the other part of the Nazism, where they have their medical professionals giving you medications for stress and then trying to say they're for something else. And then you find out then that the medications they're giving you, you should never have been on in the first place. So that also affects your fucking brain. It literally, it takes away your chain of thought. And you're walking around like a fucking zombie half the time. So when I realised this was happening, I stopped taking all the shitty medications. Because you can't even trust them now with a medication. And they've destroyed all my medical notes and medical files because of it. And one GP committed suicide, well, alleged suicide. Personally, I think they fucking killed him. That's another story, it's another matter. Apparently the guy was mentally ill, the guy was suffering depression, blah blah blah. But I think they knew that and they played on that, to be perfectly frank. He killed himself on the day that my court case was supposed to start. And nobody's copped onto that. I can't believe that. So it's been 13 years now of continued holding me criminally to blackmail and ransom at all times. And the government dealing with white supremacy, dealing with terrorism, dealing with every other issue that they want to change, but they're not addressing their own state terrorism, their own Nazism, their own supremacy, their own corruption, their own criminality. And then only today I read about Parliament and a report coming out about the bullies and abusers, even sexual violations and sexual harassment of staff and all the rest of it. Now, if they're going to do that to their own within Parliament, and place themselves above the law, just imagine what they're doing to society. Because these are the same scumbags that are carrying out their crimes against society. And I'm sure that this bullying and abuse and threats and intimidation has a lot to do with how they are told to treat people the way they treat them. Sadism. Sadism, 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 sadism. All the way through. The judges threaten the victims, intimidate them, bully them, abuse them. Crown lawyers, well, they threaten the victim and tell them they better watch their backs. Police, you don't have any rights. No, you don't have any freedom or civil liberties when they attack you in the back of a police car. Your IPCA, they wouldn't know how to do an investigation but bit them in the fucking ass. The Ombudsman's office, they just hide behind, we don't have to investigate your complaints because the government gave them a free-for-all to do whatever the fuck they like, including covering up their government's crimes and covering up their own crimes. So I'm afraid people in New Zealand is nothing but an act of state terrorism, and it's run by mafia bosses and gangsters, overall state terrorists. And their organisation of AZCC is nothing short of Nazism, sadism, lynch mobs, vigilantes, and the biggest gang of criminal abusers you'll ever come across. And all these other crown and government departments aren't far behind them, I tell you. You know, there's a lot of media stuff going on at the moment. But AZCC's top of the list, and they're trying to keep AZCC off the picture in every way known to man. But I've reached the end of my road, people. And I've already warned the Prime Minister, if anybody accuses me of something I didn't do again, she's gonna fucking wear it. She's the one that's fucking gonna take the blame for it all. I know most of these crimes have taken place before she took power, but she inherited these crimes, and she's the one responsible for addressing them. She's had 18 months to do so, and in 18 months she hasn't as much as done. Heck all. She's waited for her white supremacy to kick off so she can start her own extremism and then tell the world she's such a law-abiding citizen. No, she's not. I believed all the shit that she fed me and the rest of society before she got voted into Parliament, before she became the Prime Minister. And even then I was shocked that Winston actually went with her, but I think that was because of what John Junkie did to her. And that English guy and Coleman and Collins and all the rest of it, you know, because they lost him an election before. And yeah, they did him a dirty deed, so I had a funny feeling Winston was going to go with her in the end. It took me a while to convince myself, like, but in the end I thought about it. It was only a matter of the Greens, who were they going to go with? And the Greens going with National still when they got to a majority, so there was no point in that. But anyway, that's another issue. The point is, people, when you have these gangsters, and I call them cunts actually, K-U-N-T-S, not C-U-N-T-S, K-U-N-T-S, kidnapping, uncivilized, narcissistic, terrorizing scum, because that's what they are. And they've done just about everything to criminally provoke this case into a last resort. And they've reneged on every agreement they've ever had, acting with chicanery, trickery and deception. And the terrorists behind it are lawyers and judges. And the problem is that they want to deal with these one little stupid issues at a time and leave all the criminalities that they're involved in, separate them from the legislation and the law of AZCC. The legislation and the law in AZCC doesn't even exist, because you can read into it 50 different ways, which gives 50 different arguments for one issue, which means the government's covering its arse on about 49%, or sorry, 49 answers. Well, there's one answer that they can't, and then they decide which way they're going to go. And they usually, well, 99% they go with themselves. Or they just want to spoon feed somebody shite for the rest of their lives and then say, prove it, prove it, prove it. New Zealand must have the worst education system on the planet, because what they're taught in education is not what they implement when they go out into the real world. Laws and legislation and all the rest of it doesn't exist. All I can say is that I've reached the end of my road, and yeah. And now it's down to the Prime Minister whether she wants to call for a Royal Commission of Inquiry or whether she wants to stay in the last resort. But let me state this clear. They are the terrorists. I'm the victim. I've always been the victim. And I'm not going to accept being held criminally to blackmail by a bunch of fucking gangsters and mafia bosses, while none of their medical professionals will sit in a room in front of a video recorder and answer one question. Not one. Nor will any of their ministers or prime ministers, nor will any of their media get into the questioning. Nor will ACC, nor will the Ombudsman, nor will the police, who also said they're trying to buy time, which is exactly all they're trying to do. That time is my life and my quality of life. Which means they're breaching their own legislation and law and restoring my life to the best it can be, because they never ever went out to run rehabilitation or even investigate my injuries. They went out to investigate manufactured injuries that they wanted to use to get rid of my claim for free. And to literally undermine who I was as a human being, to discredit me, to continue to act negatively into my life again and again and again and again, while stalking, harassing, criminally harassing me. So they've literally abused every law, every part of the legislation. The Prime Minister doesn't want to call for a Royal Commission of Inquiry because she knows it's going to put ministers and Prime Ministers behind bars. And when I say ministers and Prime Ministers, I'm talking Junkie, Bill English, Helen Clark. I don't think it will go back as far as Shipley, but it probably should. But it was Helen Clark who, and her cabinet and government, who literally carried out most of the crimes in this case, because they want to protect their organised crime, criminal racketeering run AZCC system, because the entire country and its foundation of profits is built upon it. And it enables them to let investments come into the country without any opportunity of the victims to sue them whenever they take all their fucking shortcuts. So in other words, the government is profiting from its victims. The lowest form of scum on the planet are profiting from their victims. Try arguing that with the United Nations. Try arguing that with the world, Jacinda, because you know it's true. The evidence proves it's true. And you've murdered more victims than enough under AZCC. You've driven more victims to suicide under AZCC than enough. And I wouldn't be surprised if they actually committed murder against some AZCC people that they wanted rid of. Because the people I've had to deal with were nothing but terrorists. Gerard McGreevy being the head of them, and everybody who was following his lead. And yeah, but that 60 Minutes program brought a lot to my attention. What was it, Sarah Jane Parkinson, on how a person in a position of power works to attack a victim. New Zealand hasn't got 1 ounce of honesty or integrity or morality in any of its departments, or even its government. So don't be listening to the shite you're being fed by Jacinda, because everything that they're doing is to hide behind and to keep going. This is just her 3 years. She's going to play this out for 3 years, believe me. And then she'll place it, and then something else will happen in the next 3 years. She'll definitely get in next time. But something else will happen in the next 3 years, and then she'll play on that again. But all the victims of their crimes will never ever get accountability or justice or any closure as long as this continues the way it does. And to be perfectly frank, they're going to have a lot more massacres if they keep going the way they're going. Seriously. But I mean, I think that's what they play for. I think they play for conflicts and massacres and murders, and because they then use that and go, we're the victims. You know, that's how governments work. They cry victim all the time because they're never accountable for the crimes they actually commit. And then when somebody can't take any more and goes out and finishes somebody, it's like, we're the victims. Society never looks at what the victim had to go through to get to that point. And that's what society needs to fucking look at. That's what needs to be investigated. And you've got a few people in prison who have actually murdered people because they couldn't take anymore. But their stories are covered up by the New Zealand media. We don't know their whole stories. You walk into court, you don't get the story in the court, you don't get the facts in the court, because the government covers it all up. Walls, barriers, fences, obstacles, facades. It's a fucking joke. New Zealand does not run a democracy. And Jacinda Ardern is certainly no motherfucking Teresa. That's for damn sure. And half the stuff she's coming out with lately, you know, I could honestly say she needs a psychiatric evaluation if that's her point of view. And the media need to be stopped from all this propaganda bullshit, because their propaganda are lies in a lot of ways, a lot of speculation, and they're literally they're committing a crime through their actions to keep someone in power and up there so they can do more harm and more damage to society and their victims. And that's the part I can't stand. So, I've been dwelling on this all fucking day, honestly. But then again, I've had a million and one things to have to dwell on for the last 13 years since I've been singled out, isolated, alienated. I can't even have a bloody review hearing, for God's sake, without someone trying to start a whole load of conflict again. Oh, I got the review decisions. Oh, that's a cracker, actually. Mr. Hepbury he's my advocate. Well, he's supposed to be my advocate. He hasn't answered his bloody phone since the decisions came through. But anyway, we're off to appeal. But I didn't read the whole thing, but I read part of it. And it said, Mr. Hepbury seems to be a calming influence for Mr. Cruikshank. These people talk like I can't keep myself calm. I'm the calmest person in the world because I'm always right, and I know exactly what questions to ask. And when they piss me off, I usually get up and walk out of the room and take a breather. I don't stand there and argue with these twats, because all they're trying to do is provoke situations, antagonise, torment, torture and terrorise. And I always do the right thing, and I've done it for 20 years. I get up and I walk out of a room. They don't want to sit in a room with me now because I will not sit with them unless it's fully video recorded and every word is heard as a matter of fact and record. So what they've done is they've isolated me, alienated me, singled me out so they can start conflicts so they don't have to sit and answer the questions that need to be answered. So that's the kind of terrorists you're dealing with. It's a game to them. It's a very dangerous game, but it's their game. And I've had my life threatened more times than enough by these terrorists. Police cover it all up. The Ombudsman cover it all up. The Cabinet of Ministers cover it all because they're involved in it. You don't declare an act of war against the victim and say years later, oh, it was an off-the-cuff remark. They had me falsely imprisoned because of their act of war. They had me sectioned under the Mental Health Act and there was nothing wrong with me. In fact, when I was in prison, I was able to diagnose a person with his pupils kept going big and small, and I reported it. And he ended up nearly killing somebody after I reported to them that he was a danger to everybody in the place. And yeah, but I'm the one that's been attacked by those who are criminally insane within AZCC, Crown and Government themselves. Fucking joke. And then whilst they had me under a section, they didn't even interview me at all. They just sat and supervised me for 15 days and 15 nights. And the patronising, tormenting behaviours of them was a bloody disgrace. It's just, you have never seen so much condescending in all your entire life. These people are just criminal abusers, I would call them, to a large extent. I met the odd decent one in there, but I would say they're the biggest criminal abusers on the planet. And this is where their Nazism comes into it. Because it's all about trying to look for a victim's reactions. And, I'm the easiest going person in the world. You know what I mean? I'm also trained not to hit anybody, I'm trained in self-defense. So I don't have to hit out. That's like, but they keep trying, and they keep trying, and they keep trying. They attack your kids, comments about your kids, and, comments about your parenting, and comments about your... These animals will stop at nothing to criminally provoke an outcome. They'll even place you under siege in your own home. And that's what these terrorists do within AZCC, Crown and Government New Zealand, because they are terrorists. So that's the situation. I don't know where it's going to go from here, but I have a funny feeling that we're literally at the last resort. Literally. And I'm not afraid to say it. I've already said it in the court of law. Violence is always a last resort, and only a last resort. And the Prime Minister is choosing to leave me with a last resort. So much for her kindness and empathy. She can't even sit in a room with me and answer my questions. She can't even call for an inquiry. She passed the buck to her ACC minister, Who hasn't had the balls to even respond to one question or one letter? Now, they might not like the way I write my letters. I'm dyslexic anyway. But that's just me. I speak my mind. I speak the truth, and I tell it how it is. I call a spade, and I don't mincemeat my words. And anybody who wants me to sit there and go, oh yes, rather can fuck off. Right? If you're harming me, I'm going to tell you you're harming me. And I'm not going to be fucking nice about it. Anyway, you do not get protection from police or cabinet of ministers or ombudsmen or the crown or judges or anybody else. When you're up against the terrorists running the country, they class themselves as victims, and it's a one-sided affair at all times, because you're dealing with organised criminals, mafia bosses and gangsters, and overall Nazis and state terrorists. Okay. Now stick that with the sun don't shine, Jacinda, and take the video and show it to the United Nations. I'm sure they'd love to hear this, along with your new report about your human rights thing that you do. You know, I think you've done it 7 times so far, or this is your 7th one that you're doing, in relation to human rights in New Zealand. You don't have fucking human rights in New Zealand. When did you tell that to the world?